If you're new to gardening, you're probably thinking that it's all sunshine, rainbows, and tomato lollipops. But honestly, a lot of the times it looks like this. Welcome to my garden failures. Our first epic failure is all about our little seedlings and the monsoon rains. So come, follow me. If the bugs don't get your seedlings, the rain might, or the intense sun. These were tomatillos. And my mullein, let's not even talk about that. That's what happens when you have an unusually dry summer here in Florida and you're overconfident thinking it's not going to rain today either, especially when the forecast has been saying 50% chance of scattered thunderstorms for the past 10 days and nothing. And then at 9 o'clock at night, you get a downpour, and not just some regular downpour, but a crazy thunderstorm monsoon that keeps going for hours and hours and hours. But you know what? At the end of the day, for every problem, there are multiple solutions. So I'm just going to bring all my little seedlings into my covered lanai every night just in case. Now, I know that's not always possible, especially if you don't have a covered balcony or patio lanai, or if you're busy during the days working, running errands. So another solution that I had to start using was to start my seeds indoors under grow lights until they are mature enough and ready to be transplanted outside. However, I do find that I run out of space under those grow lights pretty quickly. So when that happens, I do end up bringing a lot of my seedlings outdoors. And that is why I am here making this video, because I forgot about my seedlings under the elements. So my last solution is to ultimately just plant way more than I think I will need and expect to lose some, because at the end of the day, stuff happens and it's okay. My second epic failure this season was starting all of my seeds in a mix that wasn't sterile. So usually, and for the past few years, I have been using my own DIY seed starting mix, which is a combination of cocoa coir, perlite, and compost. And that's been working out great for the most part. But I did run into some issues with some more tender plants like my rhubarb and some special flowers that I was trying to start this season. And I think because I used the compost in that mix, it may have contained little fungal spores or bacteria that didn't give the little seedlings a chance to thrive. It ended up killing them off. But what could have also happened too was that over time, with watering and then letting the soil dry out, the soil ended up being too compact. So they ended up suffocating in their little pots. So moving forward, I will be using a sterile seed starting mix for everything that I start, including the ones that are more hardy that I've been successfully starting. And that sterile seed starting mix will be equal parts cocoa coir, perlite, and some vermiculite for water retention. This mix is very fluffy. It doesn't really compact. It allows the roots enough room and space to breathe. And of course, it's sterile. But if you prefer, you can just get the pre-made bagged seed starting mixes. There's a lot of different brands out there. I just personally like to DIY my mixes. Lesson learned. My third fail of the season was trying to properly air layer this Jamaican cherry tree behind me. Air layering is a form of propagation where you're growing a new plant from a branch while it's still attached to the parent plant. See, I first did this process with this Jamaican cherry tree, which is a red variety. And you'll notice here, I still have to cover that with some cloth so that the roots are not exposed to light. But when I went to try it with this variety here, this is the yellow variety, it was an epic fail. I released the handles on my little air layering tool and it created way too much pressure and snapped the entire branch off. Next time, I'll just use a regular razor blade, and I'll also use a thicker branch because the thinner it is, the less successful this can be. But I tried again with another branch, so fingers crossed this takes. In August, I started some tatsoi. I started with about 10 plants and I'm down to about 4 or 5. But I wanted to grow more, so I decided to start more in September, which leads me to garden failure number 4, which is I completely neglected to water my little seedlings as they were popping up out of the soil. And that's one of the most important times to keep an eye on and stay on top of your little seedlings, because this is the most tender stage. You definitely do not want to overwater them at this point, but you also don't want to underwater them because they can quickly evaporate, which is what happened with mine. Now, I actually have a really good excuse for this, although it was still a bad move on my part. But my son, which is my firstborn, he's been serving in the Air Force going on 6 years, and I actually haven't seen him in almost 4 years. And he's finally back home, and my mama cup is full. So I've been a little busier than usual and forgot to water my seedlings. And as you can see here, they're pretty much gone. Like you can still see a little bit of green on this one here, but they're done. So once again, I'm going to have to start over. I won't let this happen again. I will certainly remember and find time, even if I have to write it down, which is one of the solutions. You got to write things down to remember, do it. You want to do it on paper, leave it on the counter, go for it. You want to put a little reminder in your phone calendar so that it alerts you, do that. I actually have to do that too. I do that with my fertilizing schedule, with my watering on certain little seedlings or plants that definitely need more water than my others. So I'll just have to do the same thing with my little seed starts for now. My last fail of the season was not fertilizing my loofah vine. Now you'll notice the vine looks pretty healthy up here. You even see a nice sized loofah hanging on this vine. But for this vine to be at this age, I want to say it's about 3 going on 4 months old, it should be much larger and more vigorous than this. And if we come down here, you can see the leaves are yellowing. We are lacking some nutrients for sure. And then if we come down to the base, you'll notice that the stem is on the thinner side. It should definitely be much thicker than this at this stage. So it's pretty apparent that it's missing some really good nutrients. Now, it might be too late for this, but we'll give it a shot anyway. We still have a few months of warm-ish weather before the cold kills this vine off. So I'm just going to use a nice balanced fertilizer. A lot of this natural mulch that you see around this vine is from the cowpeas that I had growing in this bed during the summertime. So I've just allowed them to die off and start breaking down on top of this soil, but also creating a mulch until I'm ready to plant my tomatoes in here. Now I'm just going to add some compost and get this loofah watered in. In my opinion, from what I've experienced, short-lived annuals like this loofah vine or tomatoes, peppers, they're a little more finicky with their nutrients. They require a little bit more than, say, my perennials like my fruit trees or my lemongrass, pigeon peas. See, with my annuals, I usually have to buy bagged fertilizer. I do always go the organic route, and I have to make sure to feed my annual veggies on a schedule because if I don't, you see what happened there. The growth is slow, the production is low, and it's just not the best use of the space and your time if you're just going to neglect them like I did. Perennials are usually a little more forgiving, and you can slowly feed them over time naturally with chop and drop, homemade compost or weed tea, homemade calcium, potassium, and magnesium fertilizers. And they'll usually do really good over the course of time with those things alone. So, again, lesson learned, stay on top of my fertilizing schedule, especially for my annual crops. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and I will see you on our next one. Bye.